Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking all about the books I read in September. When I'm having a good month, I will read around 6 books, which I think is good for me. So to celebrate being out of a reading slump, getting back into reading, I'm going to go through all the books that I read. So first of all, I read Say Her Name by Juno Dawson, which is a YA horror about kind of a Bloody Mary story. So the story goes that you look in a mirror and you say Bloody Mary 3 times, and then she kind of appears, she takes you away, she kills you, something bad happens. So this is what happens to Bobby, who is at a UK boarding school, where she gets involved in this prank where they go into the bathroom, they say Bloody Mary 3 times, and then, they get haunted by Bloody Mary. So Bobby and her friend Naya and another boy from a different school, are all involved in this, and we follow them as they kind of race to try and save their lives, like how to break this curse that is upon them and uncover these kind of like sinister things that have happened at the school and these histories. Some really creepy moments in it. I do like how creepy some parts of this were, and there's kind of this little blossoming romance, which, like, I don't feel like it was too much in it. Sometimes I don't like romance in horror because it kind of takes away, but I feel like this was like it wasn't too deep. It was just a cute little romance. It's like your first little romance. It was just a little bit cute. It was quite nice to read while also being scared by things. It was creepy, there was suspense, there was twists and turns, there was uncovering all these secrets. I really enjoyed this. And next up, I read Days at the Murasaki Bookstore by Satoshi Yagisawa. This is a translated literary fiction book from Japanese. One day, Takako's boyfriend says to her, "Oh, by the way, I'm getting married." And she says, "That's a weird way to propose." And he's like, "No, I'm getting married to another woman." So they break up. He's been seeing these 2 people, and it's like, no, it's fine, we can continue on. Takako obviously is like, no, and decides to move away, take up her uncle's offer to live for free above a bookstore and work there. It sounds great. And she doesn't even like books at this point. So I'm like, girl, I want your life. I mean, I don't want to be broken up with, but I want to live above a bookstore and work there. So we follow Takako as she kind of gets to know all the customers. She builds a relationship with her uncle. She kind of learns to love like books as well. And she kind of gets this new beginning there. And then the book kind of is a bit, I feel, it was a bit disjointed, where it kind of breaks up halfway. Kind of like the story kind of separates halfway, where Takako goes away for a bit and then comes back to the bookstore, and then we also kind of get to see the relationships with her uncle and people in her uncle's lives as well. I don't think I liked the second half as much. It felt a bit disjointed. I feel like it would have been better if it was just a bit more linear, but I really enjoyed the bits of learning about all different customers and the relationship between the uncle and his wife, and also kind of Takako learning to get closure and confronting things in her past. Next up, I went with a horror, which is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, which I really loved. We follow Patricia, who is a housewife, and she's in this book club with her friends, and they read these true crime kind of stories. And then one day, a new person arrives in town, this man, James Harris, and she realizes that he is a threat to the community, i.e. a vampire. A threaty community. She doesn't really know what at first. Then a lot of the story is her trying to convince her book club and everyone else and the men in her life that this man is a threat to the community, to their lives, their kids, everyone around. He is a threat. And no one is listening to her. You know what? The men in this book are they're just the dirt, the trash, the dirt. They're not good. I think it's meant to be a thing of the times where the women's were like the housewives, and the men kind of look down on them and think they're insignificant, and they're just hysterical women talking nonsense, reading too much true crime, and it's so infuriating to read that men, and men have these views now anyway. But I'm not gonna go on a little rant. But it was infuriating, and interwoven with that, you have these scenes of horror where obviously it's a horror book, and you have these horrific scenes that aren't even to do with him. It's just these situations, and I don't want to spoil anything and tell you about them, but they just made me go, I just had to sit there for a minute, be like, what just happened? I really enjoyed those moments. I thought that made it a really good horror, and those are just interwoven with Patricia trying to convince everyone that actually something's wrong with this man. He's a weirdo. He's a vampire. And then after that, I went for something a bit more lighthearted, which was Legend Sonates by Travis Baldree. This is a kind of cozy fantasy following Viv the Orc, who decides to give up her mercenary life to open a coffee shop in this town where no one knows what coffee is. So she has to build the coffee shop, she has to convince everyone to buy coffee, to drink the coffee, to buy new pastries, like just try all these new things. And it is quite slow paced. Like a lot of it is just her building the shop and following her on this journey. But there also is these kind of this threat of this tax collector, this kind of like tax collector threat. And then people from Viv's past come back to haunt her. There's kind of a threat there as well. So it's not all plain sailing. There is bits of mystery and there are mysterious things that are happening and that kind of push the plot along a bit. And my favorite character was Thimble. I think he's a ratkin. At first I couldn't tell if it was like a rat or a cat. I had to Google what it was. This is what he looks like. And this is like the official art of him. So he's so cute. He's like this quiet little mouse that just loves baking and he just wants to bake things all the time. And he just made me want cinnamon rolls. So he like cooks cinnamon rolls, and like warning, if you read this book, you will want cinnamon rolls constantly. Every time I picked it up, I was like, I need another cinnamon roll. So yes, if you're going to read this, make sure you have a cinnamon roll on hand, because like I don't know how you can get through this file. I remember being on the train and being like, I need to get off and get a cinnamon roll, and that's exactly what I did. And then next up, I read Yona of the Dawn, which is a manga, and I feel like I need to put a little disclaimer out that I feel like this is really good if you can get over the fact that Yona has a massive crush on her cousin, her first cousin. The only way I can get over this is by just pretending it's not her cousin, or being like, because of it is about like a royal family and it's set in a historical time, like it's set in the past, and in the past historically we know that people did marry their cousins for like, you know, family gain. If you can kind of justify it by seeing it as a thing of its time and not being doesn't take the weirdness away, but it kind of justifies it a bit, I guess. So in this, we follow Yona and her like protector. He's like her personal guard, Hack, who's kind of her friend as well. They're kind of like, I think they're similar ages, and he's kind of her friend and also her cousin. They're kind of like this little trio of friends that have grown up together. And I think her cousin is quite close. Like he's like almost like a family. He is like very close, like family. So he's kind of like, is always really nice and very kind and very like extends lots of kindness and love to her. I think maybe her love is just a bit misplaced. But anyway, there's lots of political maneuverings going on within this. And you kind of see Yona's life gets turned upside down. There's not that too much that happens in this, but you can kind of see the direction when you're reading it where things are going for the rest of the series. And I think there's like 42 volumes already, and I think we'll see Yona and Hack and their like little bantery relationship. They like kind of like they're kind of just mean to each other, and I kind of love it. So I can't wait to see more of them in this as well. I also love how Hack is so protective of Yona, and you can see he really cares through his little tough exterior. He really cares about her. Yes, so I feel like manga is expensive. I might just read it online in one of those manga apps because I need more of this in my life. And finally, I read Feybound by Sarah El Arifi. So this is a adult fantasy set in this world where elves, humans, and fae all used to live in the world. But as far as they're aware, elves are the only living ones left. They haven't seen any fae or humans in centuries, in however long. No one thinks that they're in existence anymore. So Yiren is exiled for making a mistake, a large kind of military mistake. She's exiled and is taken prisoner in this fae world. And the thing I really loved about this was that kind of was the world building and the kind of unique dynamics of it. I feel like, well, there are books with fae, they're usually fae and humans, but there's no humans in this book, so it's like not a single human in this book, which I feel like there might be at some point, but there's no humans in this book. It's fae and elves, which I thought was really unique and different from all the other fae books out there. Yiren is taken prisoner in this fae world alongside her sister and one of her fellow soldiers, and they kind of have to do some figuring out how to escape, learning about this world, and also uncovering this mystery of why the Fae haven't been seen for so long when they're not too far away from the elven worlds. So we follow them as they kind of plot their escape, figure out how to get out, what's happening in this world. I thought it was really interesting. I really enjoyed the plot. The thing that I didn't really enjoy about this is the romances. They kind of felt a bit flat and one-dimensional. I felt like all the romance was based on physical attraction, and I was always waiting for something more, or just something deeper than that to come with it, but it felt like they were just quite surface level. For an adult fantasy, there might just be a bit more. Other than that, I really enjoyed the story and the plot and the characters and the world building, and I don't think the romance really took too much away from it because of it. It was just kind of interwoven in there. It wasn't like a huge part of the story. I also really liked the way that gender and sexuality was presented in this world. It was kind of just normal to be things to be fluid, and like no one really blinked an eye at it. So I thought that was really interesting as well. I thought that really added to the world. And I think the second one is coming out next year sometime, so I'm excited to read that. And that is everything that I read in September. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, or if you want to read any of these. Also, if you've read Faebound, let me know what your thoughts were on that, because I've seen it everywhere, but I haven't really listened to anyone else's thoughts. If you've read it, let me know if you agree about the romance or not. This might just be me though. I think September was a successful reading month, and it's continuing on into October. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more from me. Thank you for watching. Bye!